Mr. President.
Yes. Hi, Glenn.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I hear you just got off the phone with Elon Musk. How did that go?
I did. Oh, he's great. This guy. He's in a world all by himself. He's a fantastic guy. When I saw that rocket ship come down yesterday, I said, "You got to be kidding!" The way it landed right where it left, right? No, he's fantastic.
We were talking. I think he is one of the great. I mean, Steve Jobs maybe is in his category.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I think he's the greatest mind and not theoretical, actually doing stuff in my lifetime.
He gets it done. There's nobody like him.
Yeah.
And he's a big supporter, which really makes me feel good. He knows what's going on. He thinks it's the most important election ever.
So, are you? Have you been serious about allowing him to go in and look for cuts and everything?
Oh, sure. No, he's also a great businessman. I'm trying to figure out a better businessman or essentially scientist, and he is great. He feels that there's tremendous fraud. Yeah. Waste and abuse. The expression fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yeah.
He feels it's there, and he could save a lot of money and make lives better. Okay.
Yeah.
You get more for the buck, but he feels so strong. He doesn't want to be in the cabinet or anything. He just can't do that. He's got so many things going. He wouldn't want to do that, but he would like to do something having to do with the budget and. Because there's tremendous waste.
Oh, yeah.
And
he's good at finding that. I mean, the way he runs his companies, it's tremendous.
He's maybe the best at finding that. Oh, people love it when they hear that. Without making any dent and make people's lives better, actually. Make them better.
I know.
Not worse. Make them better.
It really is such a statement that he's probably the most effective person on the planet of looking over the horizon and then bringing tomorrow into today. And the left, because he likes you, they will shut him down.
Yep. They'll try, but he's hard to shut down because he's so advanced. He's on a different playing field. He's so advanced. You shut him down, you shut the country down, essentially, when you look at Starlink. So he had Starlink, and in North Carolina they called. Is there any way you could call? And some great people in North Carolina are suffering, and they have no communications whatsoever. And I called him, and I didn't know much about Starlink other than it's supposed to be good. And I called him, and he had it to them immediately. Now they delayed him. They delayed him. They put a hold on what he did.
We were on the ground. My charity, Mercury One, was on the ground. We were one of the first people on the ground. We were running at the height. I think we were running 50 helicopters, and we had it all. We had everything. We were there with Elon's guy when they started jerking his chain. They even came and tried to shut us down, and our guy looked and said, you don't have a single helicopter here. We're saving people in the mountains. If you were here maybe a week ago, sure, but we're not shutting down. It was really tragic what they did. It's
one of the worst rescues ever. And I think in a league with Katrina, which was pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
Some people say it's worse. And they actually
I think it is.
People, private people like you. You go in with helicopters, you want to save people. And they didn't let them do it.
I know.
Cases.
I know.
They're a little different. You can do things, but they didn't let them do it. No, it's a terrible thing, Glenn.
I think that's
terrible thing.
I think that's one of the biggest things that, when you say we're going to take our country back, one of the biggest things that I miss is the ability to just do things that you feel are right, that are legal, but to just take control of your own life. The government has grown so far out of control. It's in every aspect of our life, and it is the problem.
And it's a nasty government. It's a mean government. They weaponize government. They've done things that, and it's interesting because the people aren't very smart. The people on top, but it's a group of people not on top. It's the people that surround them. They are smart. and they're vicious, and they're fascists, and everything else you can be.
So
it's a nasty group of people.
So
nasty.
Somebody is quite smart. I mean, sometimes historians will look back and say this was a genius. It was the biggest heist in human history. It was horrible, but it was genius. Who's actually the president, Mr. President?
Well, I think it's a committee of people, and they might not even know who the committee is. They may not even know themselves. Does that make sense? It's a group of people that are in different levels of D.C., and they surround a man that was not the most capable person.
Yeah.
By the way, never was.
Right.
But certainly not anymore.
Yeah.
And she's worse than he is. She's worse than he is. And the difference is she was a believer. You know, she was a believer for a long time. She was a Marxist for a long time. She's further left than Bernie. You've heard that many times.
Yeah.
Talk about it. But she's further left than Pocahontas, okay? Pocahontas is probably further left than Bernie, I think. I don't know how you rate him. I'd have to go by your scale. I believe in your scale maybe more than mine. You know better. But if you think about it, we have some people, and she is considered the most left in the entire Senate, and not the smartest, and not by any means the smartest. In fact, maybe the opposite.
But she is. I mean, when you say she's worse, I mean, we were talking yesterday to Mike Lee about, her centerpiece legislation when she was in the Senate, which I think was called Do No Harm. And it just dismantles religious freedom, just entirely dismantles it.
Right.
They are.
Well, when we were at a group together, for the audience to know, we spent a lot of time yesterday with the Latter-day Saints and some incredible people, and people of religion too, just people of religion. And she's against religion, and it's in her butt, it's in her bones. She's against religion, and I don't know how people can vote for her. Like we were talking about, not so much Utah because we have such a big lead there, but we were talking about Arizona, and you take a look at Arizona, and I would certainly say Nevada, and you have a lot of Latter-day Saints, Mormons in those areas. And if we got, I think we're at 88%. I mean, if we got 1% more or 2% more, this whole country would turn around, because if we won those two, we would be in awfully good shape to win the whole thing, as you know. So we spent time together, and it was great. And when I mentioned your name, I will say I mentioned Glenn's name. Everyone in the place went crazy. So that's good. They like you. Yeah. They like you a lot. That was the big audience.
It was amazing. They're electric. I mean, you at one point leaned over to me and said, "What's your gut say?" And you know the figures better than I do. My gut says you're accelerating at exactly the right time. And as I said to you, but for cheating. But
that's the biggest risk.
You told me that we've made a lot of good headroom or headway on that.
Well, I think just by nature of that we don't have COVID. They use COVID to cheat, and they did so many things, so many different things. But just the fact that they didn't get legislative approval, I mean, you don't have to go any further than that. They'd actually go for legislative approval, not get it. Like let's say it's a Republican legislature, right? Not get it, and then do it anyway. It was just terrible. They used COVID to cheat. Now, that, number one, that in itself makes it better now. But they're a very devious group, and you know it better than maybe anybody, and you talk about it more openly. A lot of people, they're afraid to talk about it. You're not afraid to talk about it. No, it's...
well, once you've been threatened by George Soros, it kind of just, everything else is kind of meh.
I see his man Gascon is down by 30 points in a poll.
Amen. Which is so crazy. It's so crazy. Kamala Harris is cut from that exact same cloth.
Yeah. Oh, that's a way of talking about it. I had a tremendous rally the night before yesterday, and it was unbelievable. And you heard about 101,000 people.
Coachella.
And I say, if we had a honest election, if we had God coming down to be our vote counter, wouldn't that be great if we could ask God to do it? That would be the ultimate vote counter, right? Because you'd have honesty.
Yeah.
But if we had God come down, I think I'd do great. I think we'd do great in California. I think we'd win it.
Wow.
They send out like 38 million ballots or 36 million ballots. They go all over the place, and then they come pouring back. And it's, you know, when you go and vote into a really good, solid state where you have a real, and they look at you and they want your ID, even if you're Trump, they say, sir, please, could I see your license? Could I see it? You know, they know it's me. There's no gives. You really can't get away with anything.
I know.
There's nothing to get away with. They don't have computerized machines. They have paper ballots and they have voter ID and everything else, right?
Have you talked to Elon Musk about this? Because I think you know this, we can transfer billions of dollars and not a penny is lost. We do it all day long and it's fine. How come we can't get the technology to lock this into place, especially with blockchain? So
Elon is the number one person for mechanical devices, including computers. There's nobody more. And yet he says the only way to do it really safely is with paper ballots. You know, it's like something, right? He said, I consider myself to be the world's greatest expert on all such things as this type of equipment, right? I would say I'd put him in number one place. When you look at that rocket, the way it landed, I'd certainly put him in number one place. And he's, you know, he's concerned because you can make things swing and you can make things do a lot of bad things. He said, but you can't do it with paper ballots. When you know, they have, believe it or not, they have paper now that's actually very highly sophisticated.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, very highly amazing. That, you know, when you hear paper, but it's very sophisticated stuff.
Yeah.
But voter ID is very important, and they don't now in California, as you know better than I do, because you talk about it a lot. But the California thing's amazing with Gavin Newsom, where you're not even allowed to ask somebody whether or not they have voter ID. If you do, I think it's like a criminal act or something. It shows our country's gone totally crazy.
So
it's gone crazy.
You and I were talking the other day about the hidden Trump vote. And I want to ask you your thoughts on something. I think there's actually a hidden Trump vote that is going to come from Democrats because they didn't convince people of these policies. They scared them into it. They taught them, shut your mouth and just go along with it. And I think reasonable Democrats are going, this doesn't work. I don't want my kids being talked to by, you know, a teacher in secret. That's the sign of a predator. I am paying more for my groceries. I can't do it anymore. And I think there's a slice of the Democrats that might tell everybody they're for Kamala, but will go in and vote for you. What do you think of that?
Right. So I think the biggest thing, you know, you see the polls, and the polls have the economy number one and inflation. I view them as the same thing in a sense. I think the inflation and economy, you can wrap them up into one. I actually think, and I may be wrong, but, you know, not wrong by much. I think the biggest thing that people are going to be looking at and voting on is what's happening at our border where murderers are allowed to come in and where drug dealers are allowed to come in and just destroy a country, literally destroy it. And inflation's a destroyer of a country too, but it's a different kind of a destroyer. It's not as mean as having guys coming in with machine guns.
I have to go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you've heard this yet. I want to play some audio. This is Bill Clinton today talking about Laken Riley. Listen to this.
You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened. But if they're all properly vetted, and that doesn't happen, and America is not having enough babies to keep our populations up, so we need immigrants that have been vetted to do work, there wouldn't be a problem.
I mean, he sounds like he's campaigning for you.
Yep, that's come a long way. You see, that's probably where they're going, because they were for open borders, no talk. Anybody comes in, just walk right into our country, which is insane. And now all of a sudden you're hearing people talking about, well, you know, we need people to come in. But the damage has been done. You have to understand that we have 21 million people came in. Hundreds of thousands of those people are from prisons and from gangs and drug lords and human traffickers and murderers. and they're here. So we have a problem. He's a little late in saying it.
I know.
Because we have a big problem. We have people in our country that are going to be murdering a lot of people. Laken Riley is a beautiful young lady. I know the parents. I know everything about her. What happened to her is just horrible. But you have many cases like that. Some you don't hear about, but they're there. Aurora is really bad. When you look at what these Venezuelan street gangs have done, they've formed, and they've taken over buildings, beautiful buildings in a very good place. And they're basically in the real estate business. You know, they've taken them over with machine guns instead of with finance. It's a little different.
J.D. Vance was talking to Martha Raddatz, by the way.
Yep,
brilliant pick. He says, Martha, are you listening to yourself? You think this little problem is little? There are Venezuelan gangs that are running apartment buildings in America. It's amazing what these people will try to excuse.
Not believable when you see it. JD's been great, by the way.
I love him.
He's been great. And as good as he's been, Waltz on the other side, I mean, is this man even a little intelligent? I mean, it's just incredible.
I know your son.
Of those two.
I know your son is a hunter. You have to ask him. Play that video of him trying to load the shotgun. I swear to you. I mean, I'm fairly decent with guns. I would not hunt with that guy. He looks like he's dangerous with a gun. He's never done that. It's crazy.
I think it was a horrible pick. Now we'll see how it works out on November 5th, because one way or the other, if they won, I guess he wasn't a horrible pick. But when I heard that they picked him, I couldn't believe it. And he's only gotten worse, and she's gotten worse. So she's worse than Biden. I really believe that she's worse than Biden. Biden is superior, and they're fighting like cats and dogs, the two of them.
So you think that's true?
Oh yeah, no. Well, he's angry because he got 14 million votes and he was thrown out. This was an overthrow of a president.
I know.
This was an overthrow of an American president. There's never been anything like that before. He won the primaries.
I know.
And they came to see him and they said, "We want you out." I'm amazed he agreed to it, actually. And you know, the truth is, he looks better than he ever did. He looks better than he did for 5 years. I don't know. Somehow he didn't play well as president, but he does play well the way he's playing against, like with Ron DeSantis in Florida, who's done a good job, very good on the hurricane. You know, it's a tough job, but he's done a very good job. But the way she went at him and just got creamed, and Biden was on Ron's side.
I know, that's crazy. I know that's, with that Bill Clinton clip. I'm just wondering, are they just like cutting her loose?
I think they're trying to steer a different path now. I think they're seeing it's not working, and we've had a very good run for 3 weeks, and I think they're seeing it's not working. She's changed 15 major policies. You're the all-time pro. I would say if you've seen any candidate for high office change two, it would be a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, remember John Kerry, I think, changed one or two things, and he became, the waffle man.
That's right. No, he did, but it didn't work.
No.
But she's changed 15. I mean, from fracking to crime to this to that to borders. She all of a sudden now wants to have a strong border, and she acts like nothing happened. Where was she for 4 years, right? But I've never seen anything like it. If you go back 2 years, just go back into their primaries and listen to what she said and what she voted for. And now every one of those things have been thrown out. So I don't know. Let's see what happens. I can't imagine you could get away with it. But there's another thing. It's called competence. And, they tried the threat to democracy with me. They tried it all. They tried everything. But let's look at now their competence. The woman is not a competent person. Mm-mm. And I think far less competent than Biden. And I never thought I'd be saying it. But there's something going on. I mean, I watched her with a teleprompter. Her teleprompter broke, and she kept going, 32, 32.
That was amazing.
I said, what's going on with her?
I know. You've been in television. I've been in television. We know teleprompters. She had no idea what the next sentence was. She was saying 32 as if, hey, prompter person, I'm at the bottom of the page. It was crazy.
If that, and you know what? She could even say, my teleprompter went off.
Yes.
And sometimes I do that, and then you go on to make your speech. You know, you can't sit there. You can't walk off the stage, right?
No.
But a teleprompter is one of the most unreliable pieces of equipment, I can tell you.
I know.
You know, sometimes, like the crowd we had, that was a big crowd. The night before, I had 101,000 people, and you can lose those. I figure teleprompters go out 5% of the time, and 2 or 3% of the time where they're just gone. I mean, I've had them blow off the stage. You know, if it's windy, they're not very good because they move like a sail. You can't. They're very hard to hold back. They move. If a teleprompter is moving, you can't. I don't use a teleprompter that much anyway, but if a teleprompter is moving, it's a problem. But you've got to be, if you're going to be in politics, you have to be able to, if and when, because it's when, but if and when the teleprompter goes, you know this, you've got to be able to speak. And she was frozen. And she's lucky that thing came back because, you know, it snapped back. It's called a snapback.
Yeah.
And it snapped back for her. And she then started continuing to read.
I wish it wouldn't have. I would have loved to see how she would have ended that.
Well, I think it would have been a bad thing.
Yeah.
She couldn't have done the 32 one more time. I don't know. It would have been bad.
So let me.
She had exhausted the number 32, I can tell you, right?
So what frightens at least me is she's not in control. No. Biden's not in control. And they're talking about changing our nuclear strategy with Russia. And I don't know who's making those decisions. And I have to tell you, Mr. President, I mean, have you read Nuclear War by Annie Jacobson?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
That's terrifying. I don't know how you would make the decision as president of the United States that quickly.
It's the biggest single threat. When these people talk about global warming and they worry about the ocean's going to rise in 300 years by 1/8 of an inch, it's like, it just infuriates. Now, at the same time, I don't even like talking about nuclear.
Right.
That's how bad it is, okay? So, you know, during my administration, you probably never heard the word nuclear. I purposely. And now you're hearing it every single day. You're hearing it all the time. And you know who issues it a lot is Putin now. He's issuing that word a lot.
I know.
And that will be, there will never have been anything like that. The level of power, I'm the one that rebuilt it. I rebuilt all of our military. I rebuilt it at the highest level. In many ways, I hated to have to do the nuclear, but I did because we have no choice.
Right.
We have other countries. We have 5 other countries now that are, as they say, nuclear capable, and that's too many. That's actually 5 too many. The truth is, I think I would have had a deal with Russia and with China to denuclearize their stock. I really think we would have had that. All 3 of us agreed on it conceptually, and I think we would have done that. But COVID came along, and we had to fight that battle, and we fought it well. Never got credit for it, really, but we fought it well. I got credit for the economy. I got credit for the military. We knocked out ISIS and got the biggest tax cuts and regulation cuts, all that. But I never got cut, you know, and nobody knew what this was. COVID came in. It was a gift from China.
I got to tell you, the way they say that you didn't do enough when they were the ones bitching when you said, I got to close to China. We can't have this happening. And they called you a bigot and everything. And now they're saying you didn't close it fast enough. I mean, do they really believe the American people are goldfish? I mean,
well, the same people, Nancy Pelosi, crazy Nancy, she was going crazy when I said, if I didn't close it from China then, and you know what, there were 11 people in the room, and I was the only one that said I want it closed, and you had to close it. We would have lost probably a couple of million people more, and we really, we would have lost millions of people more had I not done that. That was a great move. But, you know, nobody knew what this thing was. And everybody got hurt. You know, proportionately, there was a lot of equals, okay? They all got hurt. China ended up getting hurt very late in the process. You know, it looked like China almost skirted the issue. It has really hurt China. It's hurting it right now because they went through it very, very. Now they were different. They locked them in and they welded the doors closed.
I know.
And they forgot or something happened.
Yeah.
People died of starvation. Can you believe that? They welded them
China.
into their apartments.
Yeah.
And then they either forgot or something happened, but they didn't unweld them until it was too late. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, but that was a terrible thing.
I have been bitching and complaining about the Secret Service for, since Obama. We have not been protecting our presidents rightly. I mean, my people have gotten around the Secret Service. However, I will tell you this weekend, I have never seen anything like the security that you have around you now. It is top shelf. And they said that you asked the president for rocket launchers or something to protect your plane in case somebody shoots a rocket at the plane. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Well, I better not get into it, but they have very strong security around the plane.
Yeah, I know.
They have very strong security. And they really, they have to. The one thing that we don't have is we haven't had a president saying if some country in Iran, where there is actually a threat, that if they do anything it's not me, it's a president, former president, and now in leading in both parties to be president, if they do anything we're going to obliterate the country. Because when you say that, that's the end of that. They won't do anything. But we haven't heard that. And other presidents have issued, proclamations, as you probably have heard. There were 2 or 3 of them issued that way, where even rivals were being threatened. And certain presidents were able to get up and say, if you do this, we're going to hit you so hard that you won't have a country left.
Right.
And when you do that, they tend to say, well, let's take a pass, right?
Yeah.
That's the way it works. But Biden is not, I guess, not willing to do that. And that's pretty sad. I would do it with him. I would say if it were reversed and I was where he was and it was, him, I would issue such a proclamation.
You have to. You
have
to.
You don't have a country. You don't have a country.
Yeah, you don't. You don't.
So.
The Coachella guy he says he was a big fan, but they found guns in his car. I don't even know if this reached you. The campaign says it really wasn't anything. Local sheriff said they felt that they had stopped a 3rd assassination attempt. Anything on that? No,
I don't know. He said he was a big fan. And I know that, but he had some pretty nasty weapons in his car.
Yeah, right.
But he was away from the car, and the car was parked a long ways away. The place was, we had 101, I guess more than that, but over 101,000 people there. So it was a big crowd. He was very far away, but it's, when you have that kind of weapons in the car, these were not your standard weapons. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
They were not the greatest. So, we're living in a dangerous world. This is a world that's very dangerous. This is a world that's closer to World War III than we've ever been. There's never been anything like it. And the problem is, like we said, the weaponry is at a level. I always say it's not 2 army tanks running around the field shooting at each other. This is weaponry that I know better than anybody because I see it. I rebuilt it. And this is weapons and weaponry that it's not even imaginable. And we really need smart people in government now. We just can't go through another 4 years like we did with Biden. I had Iran wanting to make a deal. They were going to make a deal. I would have had a deal done within 1 week of the election. They didn't have money. There was no Hezbollah. There was no Hamas because there was no fighting. They couldn't give them money. They were there, but they didn't have any money. And we had the best situation. He could have made a deal in 1 week, and big part of the deal is no nuclear weapons, right? That was 90% of the deal. No, I want them to do great. I wanted Iran to do great, but no, they're great people. Iran, they're great people.
Yeah.
I know so many Iranians that are now living in America. They're like really great people, smart as can be, and wonderful and warm. So we don't want to have a problem, but they were broke. They had no money. I said, nope, can't do that. And you know why? They had no money because of my policy. And
right.
And they would have made a deal. They would have made a deal. I would have made that deal within a week after the election. And I want them to be really successful as a country. It's all good. But one thing, they can't have nuclear weapons. And now they're like a month away from having a nuclear weapon. That's a big problem. Now we'll see what's going on with Israel, who I think their stock has gone up very high in the last month or so. His stock has gone up very high as fighters. But it's very, very sad to see what's happened. That they would allow this to happen. Look, if I were president, Ukraine would not have been attacked by Russia, 100%.
Boris Johnson just said that. Did you see the Boris Johnson interview?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. He said that.
Yeah.
He said if Trump were there, it would have never happened.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have.
It wouldn't have.
And I got along well with Putin, but it would have never happened. What a shame. What a different world. You know what else wouldn't have happened? Inflation. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country wouldn't have happened.
Oh, my gosh.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have happened.
You know, you were talking about that the other day, and I have to correct one thing that you said.
Go ahead.
In Afghanistan, again, my charity was over. We had we ran the airport over there, and we had all of the commercial airplanes ready to go, and the State Department kept screwing us. And I mean, in the end, we got 22,000 people out. And none of them came to America because we didn't even trust our vetting, but we knew who we were bringing out. The State Department screwed us around. They actually mocked us at one point and said, well, you need one more form. And they came up with a new form. We said, we don't even know. We've never heard of that form. Where do we get it? And they said, at the embassy in Kabul. And we're like, you closed the embassy. They actually laughed and said, I guess you're just going to have to figure that out, and hung up on us. So we finally made a deal with them. You said yesterday they got all of the soldiers out. No, sir. To get the survivors that we tried to get out, the 22,000, our first plane had to be full of American soldiers that they left behind. That is crazy.
Well, what I meant is that they took the soldiers out early, the American soldiers. They left.
Yeah.
And we were left without soldiers. And they should have taken the soldiers out last. They should have been the last to go.
Right, but
when I spoke to Abdul, I said, no, you're not going to do any more. You know, they were killing a lot of our soldiers and other people. And I had a very tough conversation with him. And from that point on, 18 months, and we didn't have one. You know that.
No. Wait, you can't. You have to tell the story about the picture. You cannot just gloss over this. This is one of the greatest negotiating things I've ever heard. Tell the whole story.
I had a conversation, and it was important to have it. And because the Taliban, that's where the killing is. Like I always say, Jesse James, he liked banks. And they say, Jesse, why do you always go after a bank? He said, because that's where the money is, right? Mm-hmm. And in this case, the Taliban, because that's who was doing all the killing in Afghanistan. You know, that was the killing arm, right? So I spoke to the head. He's still there, Abdul. We had a good conversation, tough conversation, because they were killing a lot of American soldiers. And they were with Obama and Biden, but they were really killing a lot of them. And I got there, and it got lighter, but they were killing them, and a lot of snipers. And I had a couple of conversations, but I had a conversation. And I don't want to go graphically the conversation. It was a tough conversation, but you can't really repeat it. It's not appropriate. But I had a conversation, and I essentially told him, don't do it. Don't do it. And
I tell it?
Yeah, you could tell it, but I did send him something that was interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you had a picture of his house, and you said, if any of our soldiers die, I will kill you. And you put the picture down and slid it across the table, and then you walked out. I think that's brilliant. Just brilliant.
Well, it was a phone conversation, but a phone conversation, and it was sent to him, and he said, but why do you send me a picture of my house during a phone conversation? And I said, that you'll have to figure out. But we had no problem at all. So we went 18 months, not one American soldier was killed or even shot at. And after 18 months, they did this horrible move, and it was so bad. And, you know, we also gave up Bagram. So Bagram's one of the biggest bases in the world. We gave it up, and China's now occupying it. Can you imagine? The reason I wanted it, I would never have left that. I was planning on making it, you know, upgrades. What happened with Bagram is it's 1 hour from where China makes its nuclear weapons. What an asset. And now China's occupying it. Can you believe it? They gave it up. They left it the dark of night. They left the lights on. And they left this massive thing that cost us billions and billions of dollars, the longest runways in the world. Very powerful runways, thick, like 8 feet thick of concrete. Right? You can land anything on it. And we left. We just walked away from it. And what a great thing. I would never have done that. We were having it staffed up and everything. We would have left with strength and dignity. There wouldn't have been people falling off airplanes. Very sad. Very, very sad what happened. I think it was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country.
It was, at least in my lifetime. Yep. We left a lot of our arms and everything else there. Is it true they're now one of the largest arms dealers in the world, selling the arms we left behind?
So we left billions and billions and billions of dollars of brand new, beautiful equipment, tanks, trucks, thousands of trucks, many of them armor plated. They're $1 million trucks, you know.
Why wouldn't we at least blow them up before we left?
Because Millie was stupid. Millie said the same thing to me. I said, now we're going to take, sir, I think it's cheaper to leave it behind. I said, wait a minute. If you have an airplane and it's new and it costs $150 million to build it, you're not going to put a tank of jet fuel in there and fly it out to Pakistan or directly home. Sir, I think it's cheaper to leave it. He was such a stupid guy. He was so stupid. He had no common sense. You know the expression I say, the Republican Party is the party of common sense. Millie was a stupid guy. And I could just see him telling that to Biden and Biden believing it because we left all of that equipment behind. Now, if you look 3 weeks ago, they had a parade. Yeah. They have a parade every year, running the equipment right down the middle of their boulevard, and all beautiful, you know, American trucks and all mostly armor-plated stuff, very, very expensive to build and very expensive equipment, riding it down like in a parade, talking about the dumb Americans. No, what he has done to the country is such a shame. Between the borders and Afghanistan and allowing the war, Putin never would have done that war. And now you look at Ukraine, I mean, it's like a demolition site. The cities are knocked to the ground. Those beautiful golden towers are crushed and laying on their sides. They were beautiful. I mean, you can never rebuild it. You can never rebuild it. You know, a whole civilization's been lost. Yeah. Because don't forget, those cities have been obliterated. Gone. So many of them. Yeah. And you know, it's one thing, peace. What does it mean? So many of the people have left. So many of the people have died. Many more people have died in Ukraine than they talk about. You know, they'll have missiles hitting buildings, and they'll say 2 people were hurt. You know, the building will collapse. And those are big buildings. Those are buildings that are like 2-3 city blocks, normal New York City blocks. They are big buildings. I was amazed at the size of the apartment. That's what I did for a living, right? And these were big apartment houses, fairly tall but really long, and they had a lot of people. And they were hitting them with missiles. The buildings would collapse, just collapse right down to the ground, and they'd say 2 people were hurt. No. Many, many people were killed. So when the death toll is really set in Ukraine, the numbers are going to be much higher than people think. You just said something that made me think of, and I know you got to go, so we'll keep this short. But you just said, you know, what I do is I build buildings, and it made me think of the hotels in New York that are now trashing their hotels with illegals. What's the game here? What is the owners of the hotels are now operating a different product. So they used to operate luxury hotels, and now they operate them to get government money. And they're making more money than they have 100% occupancy at room rates that are higher than they ever got. And they have illegal migrants living in the buildings. And you don't want to walk in there, Glenn, because you will probably not have a good chance of getting out. It's rough stuff going on. I have friends that own these things, and they used to be luxury, and now what they are is they're hotels. And, you know, a lot of people won't go back into those hotels, too, you know, in terms of your luxury guest if that ever comes back.
Oh, yeah.
But these people are making a fortune. All they do is keep sending the government bills. And here's the saddest part. Outside of those hotels, as the migrants walk into these buildings that were luxury but are being beat up and destroyed. You know, there are fights in there all the time. And rough stuff. Rough stuff. These are tough people. These are rough people. They make our criminals look like babies. But if you ever look, we have our veterans living on the sidewalk right outside the main entrance, and you have migrants going into the hotels. Okay? How about that? And so the military should never vote for her. And frankly, I don't think anybody should. People of religion shouldn't. The Latter-day Saints should not. That's why we were there.
Yeah.
We want to get that vote. Will you please get me that vote plan?
Okay.
Because you can't let them. I'll tell you, you cannot let them vote. Who could vote? Any religion. I don't know what it is with the Catholics, but they're really after the Catholics. How can a Catholic vote for them? You know?
I don't know.
It's a very sad time, but we will have more conversations anytime. You've been a great guy, and you've really been terrific.
I mean this, Mr. President. I do this for my children. I will door knock for you. You just tell me how I can help. I will be there. Thank you for everything.
Keep that voice. You keep your voice going. That's the most important thing. You have a very powerful voice and good voice, and it's for good. Yeah. And I appreciate it very much.
You bet. We'll talk again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.